Welcome back to the Millionaires Are Made podcast. I am your host, Michelle Rule, self-made, soul-led, multimillionaire business owner, investor, wife, mum of two, and your women's wealth mentor. Now, today we are talking about something incredibly exciting. I have a guest here with me, Zorica Popovska from Liberata Wealth. Now, you all know how important wealth building is, and this is exactly why I've built this podcast. So today, having a real life financial planner on with me is absolutely incredible. So let me firstly introduce Zorica and a little bit of a background on her. So Zorica Popovska is the founder and director of Liberata Wealth, a privately backed financial planning firm based right here in Perth, Western Australia, with over 15 years in the finance industry, from boutique firms to senior roles at some of the largest Australian banks. Zorica brings a real depth and genuine independence to everything she does. She's passionate about women's financial well-being. She's a mama too, like myself. So we're relating on all levels there, and she has built her company, Liberata Wealth, on one simple principle: that her clients' needs come first. So Zorica, a big warm welcome to the Millionaires Are Made podcast. Hello.
Hello. Thank you so much. What an intro. Wow.
Look, and I'm sure I've missed some things, so we're going to backtrack a little bit. But firstly, thank you so much for being here. The more that we have these conversations, and I know I have a community of women, wealth builders, business owners, mums out there that want to have these discussions. And, you know, we want to dive into the world of what it's like to work with a financial planner, what you're seeing out there in the market, and everything to do with financial planning. But first, why don't we just take a little bit of a back step, because I'm all money. I'm money energetics. I'm money strategy. Let's have the conversation about money. And I see time and time again that it's fascinating. Those of us who move along the journey and start to want to have the conversation about wealth and money, what did it look like for us growing up? And there is no one right way that we grew up with or without money, but maybe we could start there. Just take us back on a bit of a journey. Where did you come from? How did money play a role in those early days? And maybe just zoom us all the way to where you are right now with your company as a financial planner.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So my parents actually migrated here from Macedonia when I was one. So, we came here, we didn't speak English, and, it was very hard work. So my dad would work on the mines, fly in, fly out for, very long periods of time. And then, they found that, okay, if we manage to save enough, we can buy our first property, let's subdivide, let's build, let's sell. And so that's what we did. And I think growing up, we ended up living in sort of 20 different houses at least. So it was just very normal to me to, be buying and selling property. Like, that's what I saw my parents do. That's how they created wealth. And so, and I think through that, I saw that, okay, there's money to be made with this, but I also saw hard work. And so I think growing up for me, we did go without a lot. We had the basics, but that was it. And so I thought to myself, okay, working hard, you can achieve whatever it is that you want. And so, fast forward, and now, I never thought I would actually run my own business, but here we are. And it's been a journey, but it's been a great one. And I think, everything we went through growing up, it served its purpose and has taught me many lessons that, stay with me to this day.
Gosh, that's incredible, and I feel like maybe particularly here in Australia. So my story somewhat similar that my listeners will know a bit about, but whether we go one generation back or two generations back, it's really not that long ago that our families were truly without and have been self-made. So this is, again, why I love to have these conversations, because we really are sitting on a generation where if we choose it and if we do the work, then we can be self-made to any extent. We have the greatest opportunities sitting right here.
Yes.
And, so even when we look back on how we grew up, and whether it's our parents or our grandparents, my pop, my granddad, my dad's dad came over from Italy after being a prisoner of war, over here working on farms, trying to make enough money to bring his wife, my nonna, over here.
Yes.
And then eventually my dad, and, so the generation starts. But really these stories, and, as much as I talk all of these millions of dollars and wealth and luxury and all these things, we truly are humbled in the fact that we are one of the first generations here in Australia that has the chance to become self-made. So I actually think it's our duty to have these conversations and to build wealth.
100% agree. And it's quite amazing to see what the trajectory's been like for, not only, my family, but for, family who are still back in Macedonia. So, and I think the potential is huge. And that's, I guess, why I love to help clients, because, a lot of people don't know what they don't know. They know that they want to create wealth, but they just don't know how to go about it. And so, yes, I do feel like it's our duty to, help, and it's an amazing privilege to be able to do that.
Gosh, I love this so much. Now, we're going to circle back in a moment about business, but while we're on the topic here of building out wealth and our why, I work with a lot of clients, and really the place that we start is our why.
Yeah.
Because if we're not closely bonded to a reason, a deeper reason, and for most of us that reason is something beyond ourselves for building wealth, then we're just not going to follow through. The drive's
100%.
not going to be strong enough.
100%.
So look, you're a mum of two, you're a wife. What drives you in terms of building out wealth?
Yeah, great question. I think it's probably very similar to you, and that's my family. And I just think, my parents didn't struggle to come here. And, I think people love to complain about all the injustices, like, the budget changes and all of that sort of thing. But I still think we live in such a beautiful country with so many opportunities. And so, why wouldn't you try to maximize, the potential that's there? So I know for me, it's my kids and wanting to create a beautiful life for them. And, I went without a lot. I didn't have after school activities because they were something that we couldn't afford. So for me, I think how wonderful that, it's not even a worry to be able to sign them up for tennis or piano or anything like that, but also, to try and help set them up for the future as well. And so I think if I can help clients along that journey as well, I think, particularly the women that come and see me, I deal with a lot of beautiful women of all different ages, and their why is often very similar to our why. They come from a place of wanting to build something that, they get to enjoy along the way with, nice handbags, trips to Italy, all that sort of thing. But it's a case of, then focusing on their why, which is usually something like us, which is I want to help my family. I want to give them a beautiful life. I want to be able to help my kids and my grandkids and create, generational wealth. So I feel like, that's such a privilege to be able to do that.
I love that.
Yeah.
It's our duty to build wealth because we can, and so we should. And you touched on there, even the mindset around money and the mindset. So, here in Australia, we do tend to have a bit of a tall poppy syndrome where, you're allowed to succeed, but just to a point, and then just stay in your little pocket and perhaps don't succeed too much. And to me, when we're building wealth, we really, for me personally, I need to have those big numbers. I need to have big targets, because otherwise, that humble culture will keep me potentially just paying off the mortgage, saving a little bit of super and not really having a whole lot.
Yes.
So how would you say, and then we're going to get into business, I promise you. So mindset around money, and also mindset around some of the dialogues that go on. We've just had the budget announcements here in Australia, and there's been a whole lot of noise around, the fear-based of the, removing and the capital gains tax and all, why start a business if we're just going to have half of it taken away and all of these things. And whilst I'm not ignorant to the fact that, tax is a real thing, and I pay a lot of tax. I'm a business owner. Yep. We make a lot of money, and therefore, part of that does go away, right? So, but for me, it hasn't ever been useful to focus my energy as such on those things. That hasn't really been where my true power lies. So would you say that your mindset around money and around building wealth is pretty important? And do you see that in clients that come to you, a difference in their mindset?
100%. And so I think you just have to keep pushing forward and remember the main goal and the why, which is, creating wealth and building a beautiful future, whatever that looks like for you. And it's different for everyone. So I think we have to sort of put our blinkers on and just, get rid of the noise, because it's easy to, read a few articles, get on social media, and everybody's talking about it. So it's very easy to let that energy, get into your psyche and make you start to veer away from your goal. But I think you've just got to put your blinkers on and focus on staying in your lane, maximize, what you have available to you. I think that is, the way you have to look at it, because otherwise it will bring you down. And I think the way you get out there, you're so audacious and beautiful in the way you go about it, and you're not afraid to speak numbers. And I think that it's also so important to have women as a role model, showing that that is possible for them too. So keep doing what you're doing.
Thank you. I love that so much. But also the reason, because, even back during the, year 2020, and we all know what happened in those couple of years, globally. But the thing is, and this is why I feel like it's our duty to say that this is what wealthy women are doing. They're putting their blinders on. They're not ignorant to the fact of what's going on, but they're focusing on what they can control.
Correct.
Because the risks associated in not doing that, it's a grave risk. So in 2020, my husband and I, we were purchasing, I think we were up to property number 4, and the whole world's screaming that everything's ending and, devastation. And I'm not saying that wasn't happening, but our plan that year was to purchase. So we had our financial statements ready. We were ready to purchase, and then that dropped, and we thought, well, we're going to stick to our plan, because our plan still stays, and no matter what happens globally, look, if it all goes down the toilet, then we're all going down together anyway. So we can't do anything in terms of, that fear-based. We stuck to the plan. And those, now people are saying, oh, well, you're so lucky you purchased back then. And I said, well, right now, today, it's the same thing. So today.
Absolutely. Yes.
So given
100%.
that, let's talk financial planning for a bit. Let's talk about your business. Let's talk about firstly, what made you start the business? Because I think, as a business owner to business owner, we have to be slightly psychotic to want to own a business, or there's a massive driver that where we've worked in corporate or we've worked for companies and we've just decided to go out on our own. We want to do something slightly different, or we're just so passionate about what we're doing. So Liberata Wealth, how did that come about? And
So to be honest, I actually did not see myself as a business owner or ever starting a financial planning business. I had always worked in support roles, built my way up into, admin, then paraplanning, then being a financial planner, and then being a senior advisor. And I was happy doing that. And so it wasn't until sort of we had the Royal Commission into Banking and Financial Services back in 2018. A few years later, the bank that I was working at decided to sell part of their financial planning division to another company. I was part of that takeover. And I thought to myself, do you know what? Is this really where I want to be going? And it's one of those moments where I had a LinkedIn message sent to me and it said, Zorica, have you ever thought about running your own business? Because you've got the experience, you've got the clients, we can support you with, licensee services. And I remember reading that message and I kind of just stopped and I was like, I'd never actually thought about it because I'd considered myself a great support person. You tell me what to do and I'll do it. And so I let that sit for a few days and then I thought, do you know what? Why not me? Why not me? But I think it's not really modeled so much in the industry. It's still very male dominated. We had so many people leaving the industry. I think it nearly halved in, the few years after the Royal Commission. And I remember people saying to me, why would you open a financial planning business now? You've got 2 kids, my youngest was 2, my eldest was 5 at the time. And people were like, why would you do that? And I thought, well, do you know what? If I don't try, I'm going to get to 80 and then think, what if? And so if it is a mistake, it's my mistake to make. But I know that, I can only just give it my best shot. And so I was fortunate enough to have some amazing clients follow me and it's just sort of grown organically over time. And now I look back, I'm like, far out, that was pretty brave. Was I crazy?
Audacity.
Yes, the audacity. But I think just having that sit inside, it was a felt experience for me. And so I was like, I have to try because I don't want to live with regret. I'd rather regret the things that I did do than the things I didn't do. And so here we are.
Yes, yeah. I feel like all the women are nodding along to this right now. If you're driving the car or on the treadmill, you're thinking, yes, why not me?
Why not me?
And even so listeners will know I have an IT company with my husband and the story was similar. And it's very easy once you've built success for people to say, oh, you've got it easy because you've got the business. But it really starts with the audacity to just say, why not me?
Yes.
I'm actually going to start the thing.
Exactly.
And for us, we were newlyweds. We just got married and my husband said, I'm going to use my long service leave, quit my job on our honeymoon. Great. We just got married. Amazing. Good timing. What were my parents thinking? Yeah. But he asked me, this is what I want to do. Should I do it? Would you support me? And it was right, 100 million %.
Yes,
because
absolutely.
If not now, then when?
Then when?
And there's never going to be the perfect time. Same with investing. You've got to move on it.
100%.
When you have that intuitive hit, that is something speaking through you saying, now is your time, make the move, do the thing.
Exactly. And I feel like you wouldn't have that desire on your heart if it wasn't meant for you.
Yes.
And so, I 100% agree with everything you're saying. And looking back, it's like, were we crazy? What were we thinking? But now it's like, I have no regret. I have no regret and I'm happy. Yeah.
Beautiful. And I bet your clients are happy too. So
I like to think so.
Yes, absolutely. So, oh my gosh. So financial planning, right? So let's just deep breath. We're going to dive into the world of financial planning. And I'll give you a little bit of a, insight into where my first experience with financial planners and why I'm so passionate about, bringing on financial planners, accountants, bookkeepers, all of because wealthy women are using these incredible people in their toolkit. Now, we're not outsourcing our power, but what we are doing is we're being really smart about the roles that each of you play and understanding that, how to utilize your skills and where to meet up with you and all of that. So, some of my first experience with a financial planner, I was like, oh, that sounds good. Maybe they're going to make me wealthy. So I'll find one. I must have been 21, just started a full-time job, and you arrive and they said high risk, low risk, what do you want? And it was of course this won't be you, but it was a tick box, and then I'll see you in a year, and then it was another tick box, and a couple years later, as a young 20-year-old, I was getting into credit card debt with a high performing job, high salary in the advertising industry, so I guess let's talk a bit about how we can best use our financial planners, how we can get the most out of that key person in our team, because I have a financial planner now and we need them, right? Yes. So I think if we can have the conversation about what they do, what they don't do, where we bring them in, how to best utilize that beautiful skill set that you have.
Okay. Yeah. Well, thank you for sharing that, because That's very similar to my experience. You know, I started working and suddenly I'm making some money and I thought, oh my God, this is fabulous. It was money in, money out.
Yes.
Like I remember my first pay, I went and bought some designer sunglasses, a couple of tops from Kukai, and I thought, oh my God, this is
Kukai,
great.
yes.
I know, Kukai. Yeah. And then I think after a while, I was like, okay, I'm making money, but I've got nothing to show for it. And it wasn't until I started actually working as a paraplanner for an advice firm that they said to me, you know, as part of the staff benefits, why don't we actually do a plan for you so you can experience firsthand? And I thought, gosh, I don't make enough money for this because the plans that I was writing were for wealthy people. And every 6 months to a year, we would do their annual, you know, their 6 monthly or annual review. And I'd be like, oh my gosh, they're just making more and more and more.
Right.
And I felt so detached from that. I thought that feels so far away for me. But having gone through that experience where I had a plan done for me, and it was the same concepts but just tailored to my situation. You know, we looked at super and made sure that was invested appropriately. We made sure that, you know, I had enough insurance in place. If I got sick or injured and couldn't work, you know, I would have income protection there, protecting my greatest asset, which is my ability to earn an income.
Honestly,
right?
so important. Right there, every single woman listening, if you don't yet have your financial planner and your insurances in check, you absolutely must.
100%.
You must, because we never think these things will happen, but the day that it does, whether it's you or your partner, we want our kids, our, you know, the mortgages to be paid. We need to be prepared.
Yes. And so, you know, it's funny, a lot of people say, well, I've insured my house, I've insured my car, but have you insured yourself? Because you are actually the greatest asset to your family, not the house that you live in, not the car that you're driving, but your ability to earn an income. If you compound that out over decades, like that is multi-millions.
Right.
And so that was part of the plan. And at the time we got started, you know, with just setting up an investment portfolio. We had a margin loan against it and a regular savings plan. And so, you know, same sort of concepts that I still look at for clients today. And we happened to invest just after the GFC back in, you know, 2007, 2008. And so I was fortunate enough to have, you know, I think it was like 35% growth in the first year during that bounce back. So a lot of that was lucky timing, but it helped me see that, wow, this doesn't have to be difficult. It doesn't have to be a minefield, and I can really see the benefit. And so with that, I was then able to, you know, put a deposit on a property, and just going through that process and witnessing it firsthand, you know, it was phenomenal. It really did change the trajectory of my life. And I thought, well, if I can benefit from this, imagine how many other people can benefit from this too. And so these are still the concepts that we look at to this day for clients. So when I look at financial planning, I think of it, you know, my kids say, my mum helps people make money. And I'm like, yes, that is true. Yes, which is great. But I feel like there's so much more to it. So, you know, I like to say, you know, it's creating wealth, it's enhancing your wealth position, and it's protecting your wealth as well. So, you know, I use the analogy, it's like a house. So that, you know, looking at the foundation, making sure, you know, your cash flow is adequate, making sure, you know, you're living below your means. We've got some surplus there, and we're using that effectively and having that emergency fund. And then you've got the walls of your house, which is your wealth creation. And so that's things like, you know, have we got medium to long-term investments? Is your super invested appropriately? Is it working as hard as it can be, as, you know, as possible for you? And then the roof of the house, which would be making sure that during turbulent times, we're keeping out terrible weather and we're protecting what's important to us. So yeah, that's what we do. There's so much to say.
Yes, I love this honestly so much.
Yep.
And I even love how you shared that moment in, was it 2008? Look, I remember that too.
Yes.
I'm a millennial. I've been around
yes.
a few different moments in history where it's seemingly either you get a bit of good luck or a bit of bad luck, and the market will swing in roundabouts. So it's really important, especially if there's any young women listening, that we play the long game.
We do.
We play the long game and we win at the long game.
Absolutely.
So once again, it's about being educated and having people like yourself in your corner that can look at, well, what is the long-term vision?
Yes.
Where do you want to go and how much do you want to build?
Exactly.
And this specifically was something that I never had that conversation in those early days with my financial planner that I had never even asked myself.
Yes.
So, even is this something where clients could come to you, and would it be helpful? And potentially this is what I work with my clients as well with is, okay, so what is the vision? Because your financial planner, highly skilled, they will be able to give you the advice, and we need that. But we need to come with some level of vision and also some level of ability to manage cash flow, which is another really important topic. Manage that cash flow so that we've got something there to invest.
Definitely.
So, I would say, do clients come to you with any level of preparedness? I'm sure you can take them whether they're prepared or not.
Yes.
But how could they best get ready for a conversation with their financial planner, and what sorts of things would they need to think about prior to those initial meetings?
Yes, great question. So this is something we always take clients through. So whenever a client reaches out and says, hey, I think I want to use your services, it always starts with a conversation. So we'll spend sort of 10 to 15 minutes on the phone having an initial chat and just gauging, what does that client hope to get out of an engagement with us? And, if we are not the right professional, we can direct them to someone who can actually help. But we, through that conversation, get a bit of an idea of where they're at and where they're going. Then we send them lots of information. So it gives them an idea of, how we work, what to expect in dealing with us. And part of that is like a pre-interview questionnaire. So there's lots of really good prompts on there that, give us a bit of a background as to where they're at. So things like, assets, liabilities, income, expenses, but most importantly, your goals. So there are prompts in there that say, what are you hoping to achieve? Let's look at short-term, medium-term, long-term. And so that when a client comes in, that's what we are building off. We've got some background information. We're not sitting there going, what's the value of your house? How much do you think you have in super? And I think that's one thing that clients are really surprised about. Like they'll come in and they'll, I think they have this, they kind of expect us to be doing all the talking and them to be listening, or, us to be asking them technical questions, but that's so not the case. And I've had clients come in and say, please just treat me like a dunce because I don't know anything about investing. And I'm like, but you don't have to know. Yes. Like this is why we're here. This, underlying a plan is always, what are you trying to achieve? What is your why? What are the big goals that, feel very far away and big and scary because, in 10 to 20 years' time, if you want to achieve these things, great. But time is going to pass anyway. Yes. So why are we not taking, we can reverse engineer that and go, okay, well, yes, that feels like a big number there, but what if we broke it down now and said, okay, if we did X dollars every year into this, these types of investments, you would get there. And clients will look at it and go, oh,
There it is. There's a strategy.
Yes,
we were waiting for some
exactly.
magical, mysterious thing.
Not. And a lot of the time it's sticking with the plan and just doing what you need to do. And even when the market is up or down, it doesn't matter. We stick with the plan, and ultimately, we will try and get you as close to where you want to be.
That's incredible. I love that you're having these conversations. And, I run a high-level mastermind, Millionaires Are Made Mastermind, and we're lucky enough to have had you guest speak in that space. And I've seen the spreadsheets, I've seen the charts, and it's going to be very different if someone comes to you and says, I want to build 1 million or 2 million versus someone that is like, no, 20 million would be my absolute base level, because then what we're going to deploy is going to be different. And it's not that the onus is all on your financial planner, but we work together.
Yes.
It's a teamwork situation.
It's
a co-creation.
Yes.
And I do like to say, and potentially it's that we have to have the courage at least to speak the dream and to speak the vision.
100%.
And, myself, I would say some of those earlier days with my financial team, I didn't have the confidence.
Yes.
I may have thought that I was, going to build this incredible life, but to actually say it out loud felt scary.
Yes.
So I think that's a really important thing, is to give yourself permission to have those dreams, those goals, and speak to your financial team. Speak your truth to them.
100%.
And if we're not finding people in our team, like if you get the side eye or a laugh, then it's not your person. It's just not your person, because no matter what industry we work in, we're going to come up against mindsets of individuals. So if you're working with someone who has that lack mindset, whether they're the financial planner or whoever they are, then perhaps you will feel that. But if you come across someone like yourself, and we've had many conversations about our expansive view on wealth, then you truly have permission to build whatever it is you want to build.
Oh my gosh, 100%, 100%. And I feel like, I also see clients who they've been thinking about it, and then 6 months has gone by, a year's gone by. That year turns into 5 years, into 10 years, and then they still haven't done anything about it. So I feel like having someone on your team who can actually talk you through it, but then help you implement it is huge as well. I've got a client right now who, they've gone through some pretty horrible things in life, and they've got money sitting in cash, excellent income earning capability, but they're scared to invest. And so, this client has even said to me, I think that in the last few years alone, I've missed out on, and they estimate between 1.1 and 1.3 mil. And I keep saying to them, don't worry about what's happened. We can't change that. The great thing is you've got so much time on your side. So, the sooner we get this deployed, the better for you. So
once again, it's back to the mindset.
Yes.
It's about understanding how to use the tools in your toolkit, but it's the mindset.
Yes.
And that, analysis paralysis that can occur when we're looking for this magical scenario. But really it's, wealth creation, the way that I see it, is unique and is very individual, and it will be tailored to your goals. But action, we need to take action.
Action is key. Honestly,
sitting is the biggest opportunity cost risk.
It really is.
Yeah.
100%. And that is a big part of what we do. We go ahead once you sign off saying, yep, we'll go ahead and we'll implement it for you. And that, getting you in then every 6 months, every year to check how's everything working for you, what's changed, what do we need to, tweak in the strategy, because things will change. Change is inevitable. So I think that is also so important, having someone on your team who will prompt you, because life gets busy. Before you know it, a year's gone by, and clients will be like, didn't I just see you? It's like, it's actually been 11 months. And so sitting and working with someone who can keep you on track and adjust as need be, that is so valuable, because Otherwise, it often becomes part of the to-do list that doesn't actually get ticked off.
I love this so much. So that's great.
Yeah.
So thanks for clarifying that. So we really want to be seeing our financial planner at least touching base every 6 months, 12 months.
Yeah.
And if you have a financial planner and you haven't seen them in 5 years, well, maybe, tap them on the shoulder or have a look to see, to see what your plan is doing and if everything is still where it needs to be.
Exactly. 100%.
Incredible. Amazing. So in terms of financial planning space, so one of the last things I want to touch on here is, we've looked at the opportunities of what you can have by having your financial planner on your team.
Yes.
Do we come across people who don't have financial planners, and what's the risk associated with people that potentially think, well, I don't really need a financial planner. I'm paying off my mortgage. I've got my employer putting money into super. So, I'll just do it alone. What's the risk involved there?
Oh, I've got so much to say on this.
Okay. Tell me all the juice.
So, the thing is, people are good at what they do, and unless you sort of work in the industry, it's hard to know all the ins and outs. And I've seen so many clients where I've just gone, oh my God, that was such a close call. Like I saw a client not that long ago, and they had been talking to friends, and their friends said, if you put some money into super, you can help reduce your tax bill. So they were ready to go. They were going to go do it themselves. But then their accountant said, why don't you just have a chat with Zorica? And so this particular client came in, and I said, look, you actually can't put it into that particular fund. Being an untaxed fund, it's quite different in the way it works. And so that client was going to put that money in, try and claim a tax deduction that would have been declined. And so what we ended up doing as part of the strategy was looking at, because they were trying to reduce that capital gains tax bill. And so what they didn't realise was we could actually use the 5-year carry forward concessional contribution limit. So we ended up putting over $100,000 into super, claiming it as a tax deduction, and pretty much wiping out their tax bill for that year. And they wouldn't have known that had they just, listened to their friends or done a little bit of a Google search. So on top of that, we managed to restructure their assets so that we were maximising age pension for them. I think the increase was something like 10 grand a year, like it was pretty significant. And so when you look at all those things combined, like it's so valuable, not just in the year that you're saving tax, but compounded out over the next, 5, 10, 15, 20 years. Like it is so powerful. Yeah. And I think people don't know what they don't know. Oh. And, you might go see someone and they might go, do you know what? You're actually on the right track. I would tweak possibly this and this and this. I mean, personally, I don't take a client on unless I feel I can add significant value for them. I don't feel right charging a fee for advice and implementation if I don't feel like I can at least give them that benefit back. And so there's been so many close calls like that. So that's just one scenario. Honestly. I mean,
a case of you don't know what you don't know. And why do we feel like we have to figure it all out ourselves?
Yes,
like
exactly.
We outsource to the experts.
Yes,
and
absolutely.
often, people can be looking and thinking, well, what's the cost of using someone?
Yes.
My brain as a business owner and an opportunist is always, what is the cost of not doing the thing? Yes. And as you've highlighted already, we don't know what we don't know. And you're going to go into it thinking, what? You're going to save a few $1,000s, but then at the risk of losing, one client over $1 million.
Well, exactly.
Right, from inaction and just the next door neighbour advice.
I know.
Which I know they mean well, of
Absolutely.
course, because we're social creatures and we like to chat to our neighbours.
Exactly.
We want to bounce ideas off, off the parents, 100%. Off the friends. But
I get it.
The thing is, once again, it's all such a unique situation. And whether you're a business owner, it's going to be different. Yeah. Or if you're on a salary or what your tax bracket is or, what your super, how many years till retirement and what that even looks like.
Yes.
So, and I wasn't going to mention this, but since we're talking retirement or tools down, I often get this question because, I talk about financial freedom and myself, we became financially free a couple of years ago. Now, for me, what that meant is I had enough of an asset base, enough of a wealth machine, including a business that's creating income that I no longer needed to work in, to the point where, okay, I don't actively have to go out and earn anything now. So to me, that's what financial freedom is. You've got money servicing your life. You have an asset base big enough where the returns, the dividends or the growth is enough to sustain you, right? And to me, this is a great way of looking at wealth, because rather than, potentially saving just enough money to then spend and use for the rest of your life and then exiting with zero, what we're looking at is you've created an asset base, whether that's shares, property, where that base will continue to remain intact and therefore go on again and again, year after year, and then actually pass that on as generational wealth. So when we're looking at retirement, and some of my clients don't like this word. They're like, Michelle, don't talk to me about retirement. I'm not old, plus I'm not retiring. Look, I get you. And I call this tools down now. I call this where you no longer need to. And look, here I am. I just start another business. So you're not really ever going to see me stopping or slowing down, because why would I? Like, I love to be productive. And I also think that it's human nature to want to produce and to help and to serve and to experience life, right? So it's not so much about not doing anything, but if we do need to have a plan though. We need to have some type of tools down retirement plan and some type of a concept as to how many years are you happy to keep going at your pace in order to set yourself up, even if you still want to keep working, but what that timeline looks like. So I would say just around the retirement strategy, this is always, because people say, but where does the money come from? Like, am I getting a dividend or are you selling down property? And for me, it's an art form. And to me, my whole ethos has been the larger the asset base, the better, because you've got more assets, you've got more opportunity to do what you like with it. But in terms of retirement strategies, this really is a financial planner conversation. We need to be able to look at the strategy, mark the day that you'll be tools down and have some type of a concept at least of what you would do on that day one. So is this something that you talk with your clients about, and what are people doing out there? Like, give me the scoop on, are people, are they still saving up a packet of super and then drawing down on that? Or are they looking at generational wealth, or is it just a mix of absolutely everything?
It's a real mix, and it looks different for everybody. I've got some clients who say, look, I want to start reducing my hours, but I think for most people it's just knowing that they have that say, and when they are ready to tools down, they're in a empowered position to be able to do that and know with certainty, or a high degree of certainty, that their asset base will last them as long as they do. And so some clients will say, I want to make sure I preserve that and continue growing that so that I can leave money for kids and grandkids. And so of course that forms part of the plan, but I have others who say, no, I am going to wear it right down to zero.
Love that.
And I'm just going to go travel and enjoy, and that's absolutely fantastic as well. And so it really depends on the individual, but I think particularly with all the budget changes that we've had, I think superannuation will still be a very attractive option, because it's managed expertly on your behalf a lot of the time. For people who don't have a self-managed super fund, it is managed by expert fund managers. You've got that excellent growth potential over the long term, depending on what the ups and downs in the market are. Maximum tax at 15%. You get concessions potentially for contributing into there by way of a tax deduction, whether that be through salary sacrifice or making your own contributions and claiming a tax deduction. And for a lot of clients, we're still trying to maximize that, because ultimately we can then roll it to a tax-free pension that's, very similar in the way that it's invested. You've still got your money working hard for you over the long term. It's still invested in shares and property and fixed interest and cash. So still well diversified, but it's kind of utopia in the sense that tax-free earnings, tax-free income. And I've got some
Everyone's
clients.
listening now.
Yes.
Like, tax-free what?
I know. It sounds
Give me some of
amazing,
that.
right? Sounds amazing. So, the rules are the rules. And at the moment, and I dare say they will change at some stage. But we just try and maximize the opportunities that we have at hand now. And I think that for a lot of clients, it's still ramping those contributions right up. And then making sure that we've got that asset base to support us, because I've been doing this for a lot of clients since I was first an advisor many years ago, and those clients are now they've got over $2 million between the two of them in pension phase. They only need $100,000 a year to live, so their pension only has to earn 5% per annum to be able to give them an income of $100,000 a year, tax-free, and we're not even touching the capital. So when they come in for their annual review, I'm like, great, look how well it's performed. They're like, but why is it still moving forward? Why is the balance still growing?
Yes.
We're drawing more than we need. And I'm like, but that's the beauty of it. That's what you've worked so hard for. And now you are in this position. So if you want to go do the travel, go do the travel. If you want to go pay for kids' private school fees, grandkids' private school fees, go for it. The money's there. And I've had clients, help wipe their kids' mortgages, all sorts of wonderful things. And I feel like this is what financial planning is for me. It's not so much about, the numbers and this and that. That's a big part of it, but it's what's important to that client. And my clients, and I think a lot of people, are just beautiful people with beautiful goals. And so if your planner can help you get to where you want to be and tick those big, beautiful goals off, like, that's such a privilege. And like, why wouldn't you engage someone to help you with that?
Oh my goodness. I could listen to you talk about financial planning all day long. And yes, I can relate on so many levels, even with my own parents. They're both retired. They were teachers. So my dad, a chemistry teacher at high school, even wrote chemistry books, did tutoring on the side to make, the extra dollars. And mum was a primary school teacher, ended up being a principal of a principal for the last decade of her career. And they're both retired. They're traveling the world, but they are still just, do I spend the money? Yes, mum, you spend the money. And so even though we talk about generational wealth, and we'll touch on briefly what we're doing with our kids as well, because as a mum, you're a mum of two. I'm a mum of two as well. In fact, our kids go to school together, which is how we met in the classroom corridors, chatting about wealth and all of the magical things. But as a mum, the decisions that we're going to make for our kids, building generational wealth, I think it's a good idea because we can.
Yes.
It doesn't mean that you're locked into doing it a specific way. And I say, potentially we will hand or help with a deposit to get the kids started with their first investment property, for example, and teach them how to start investing in that way. And, so even for my parents, they did it the traditional way. They had excellent superannuation. There was some teacher schemes at the time, and they funneled everything into super. They worked really, really hard, and then they retired on the dot. Mum probably worked a few extra years, loving what she did. But to me, there's a couple things going on here. It's a mindset shift. What happens to the beautiful human being when you get to a space, when you realize that your asset base is growing faster than you need to spend it? It's a gift.
It is.
It's a gift that I believe every single human should have.
So it's that freedom and flexibility to choose. And I think it's just so great. And the thing is, it doesn't have to feel like a big, unachievable goal. Like, if the more time you have on your side, the better. Because what a lot of people don't realize is, the power and magic of compounding over time is just so amazing. Like, I will always include projections in our plans. And so when I'm presenting a plan, I'll show clients and I'll say, okay, by, life expectancy, whatever that looks like, if we were to look at early 90s, you're still going to have, X million dollars in assets. And they're like, but how is that possible?
Yes.
And I'm like, it
trust
is.
the plan. Look
Trust
at
the
the
plan.
Trust the data.
Yes,
and this
exactly.
is great. This is how we
Yes.
make these decisions,
Yes.
right? So I hope the listeners, as they're hearing us speak generational wealth, it truly
Yes.
gets to be however you want to do it. But I always just think, just plan for more. Just
Yes.
plan to build bigger.
Yes.
Plan to build as much as you feel that you can. Of course, enjoying
Yes.
life along the way. Like when I look
Definitely.
at the way that I've spent money over
Yes.
the last decade, and my children are young. I've got a 10-year-old and a 5-year-old, and we want to take those family trips, and we are.
Yes.
And we
Right.
are. And we're off to Vietnam in a few weeks. And it's for the first time we're taking the kids' business. And I'm like, well, because we can and we will. And I think this is, and so if you're listening and you're still starting out, like I've come from 30K debt, like credit card debt as a, young person. So this is not, it's not a one scenario where, you're either wealthy or you're not.
No.
This is a scenario where you actually get to choose every single day on what you want to do.
Oh my gosh.
And so let's just touch briefly on the kids, because I get this question too with my clients. And I know when you came to speak in the mastermind, we had a little conversation about like, how do we teach our kids about money and what are we doing with helping them learn this world of money and this world of investing. And even in a world where we're not seeing money, they're just tapping away on their spriggy
just
cards.
tap it on your card, Mum.
My 10-year-old's like, I want a spriggy. I'm like, fine, what is this spriggy? You can have that. And, they can see it in the app. And actually my son, I'm not worried about it all. He's very diligent, and I'll tell you a bit about some things we've started with him to get him understanding about investing. And he's 10, why not? My daughter, on the other hand, she loves to spend, but then again, so do I, and I've done okay. So I think we're going to come at this differently. But, is there anything you're doing with your kids who are a similar age to my kids? They're very young, but is there anything that we can do to either start investing for them or start teaching them about money, or what are we doing with the kids?
There's so many ways to go about this, but I'll just let you know sort of what I'm doing with my boys. So mine will be 7 and 10 this year. And I realized when we would go to a cafe, they would go, why can't I have that donut? Just pay on your phone, Mum. Just tap your phone. I'm like, wow, we've got some learning to do. And so I just took it back to real simple basics. And so, very similar to what I teach clients who have never invested before, explaining how, what the options are. But I took it one step further in that I gave them a bit of ownership. So they've got ethnic grandparents. They get cash given to them as gifts a lot of the time.
Open the birthday card, money falls out.
Yes, exactly. And so they'd be like, I'm going to go buy Lego. I'm going to go buy candy with this. And I'm like, you're only human. Totally understand. But I said, why don't we start doing something more productive with this? Because I want to show you how you can start actually having your money make money for you. They're like, mind blown.
Money make money, right? We need to be saying this. Yes, your money will make money. So tell us,
really
what
simple.
Are we saying?
Yes, okay. And so I said, let's save a little bit. And I drove them to the ATM. And we deposited the money into the ATM, and they were horrified. They're like, where's the money gone? So I showed them on the banking app, here it is. It's here now. And now we are going to deposit it into your investment fund, and we are going to buy the investments together. So that's what we did. And so we took that as a little learning opportunity to say, okay, these are the different options. This is what it means, and by buying, this particular fund, you'll have exposure to shares. So you are a part owner in a company. They're like, whoa, what? That's crazy. And so we did the whole process. And so now, once we save a little bit, I give them the option. I'm like, you guys, you can spend some of this because you have to enjoy part of it. It's not all about scrimping and saving for the future. So how about if we've got $100, how much would you feel would be a comfortable amount for you to take a little bit and go spend it on whatever you want, whatever makes you happy? So they might say, okay, $20, I want to take it and go buy a Lego or whatever that looks like. So they'll go do that, and I'll say, okay, how about we invest a big portion of the rest. They're like, that's great. And so we do the same thing. Go to the ATM, put the money into the account, and then we go on the app and go buy the investments. And then they'll ask me, how's my portfolio doing, Mum? And I'll tell them, we're now up to it, because it tells you how much you have earned. And so they're like, but I've done that without doing anything. I'm like, well, yeah, you haven't physically done anything. You've taken that risk though. And this is the reward for it. And so I guess another small part of that is I wanted to get them, donating to a cause that they feel passionate about. So my kids are dog lovers. So the last couple of years for Christmas, we will take part of that money and we will go call the dog pound and say, what do you guys need? Then we'll go shopping. We'll put a little basket together and we go drop it off at the dog pound. So I'm like, guys, you are making such good money decisions and you're making them, which is great. So if they're learning to manage this relatively small amount, what would be stopping them from managing bigger amounts?
This is a game changer. So we speak to our 7 and 10-year-olds and, after speaking with you in the mastermind, we'd had some bank accounts for the kids and they were getting some drip-fed money every week. But I thought, hang on a minute, there's no transparency. So what is this? And then I opened up we've now got the little app with the investing and spoke to my son about it and now he's watching that. Now, the funny thing is, because we've only done that for the last, it must be about 3 months, we actually have a negative amount of gains, right? Because it's just a couple of months.
What a good learning experience.
Exactly. And so he's like, well, hang on, Mum, it's going up because he's adding to it. And he's very interested. He's like, if he's got some cash, he's like, no, I actually don't need to spend anything. Put it all in there, Mum. And I'm like, great, let's watch this grow. Show him, we purchase them, we wait for it to clear, all in there, the little graph. But I say to him, I want you to see this long term. Because nobody's touching that for a good while anyway. You're 10, right? So I want you to have this experience where you're looking at the ups and the downs. And maybe it's 6 months of down and then it's the next 6 months we have the 30% growth and it's all woohoo. But this is how we learn.
Exactly. We learn by doing and we learn by starting as soon as we can. And starting with whatever we have available.
Agreed.
Even if that's $100, great. It's $100 more that, in 20 years' time is going to be worth so much more than $100.
So important. Look, if I could have my time again. And I think that's why I got into that credit card debt early on, because I kept waiting for the next pay rise and waiting. Later on, I'm going to earn more and later on. And look, later on doesn't come.
It doesn't.
It's actually about understanding the system of moving money. And if we, whether it's $100, we're going to move it, get that cash flow, or whether it's 100,000 or whether it's $1 million, we still are just making decisions about where to flow it.
It's just bigger numbers, but you're the one that's in control and you're the one that's exactly like you said, not waiting for one day. You're making it happen, and that is the biggest thing. Making that call and being in control and being proactive. And it's okay. If it doesn't work out, that's okay. We just adjust the plan. No problem.
Plenty of life left to figure it out. Listen, I've got 2 last questions for you, even though I could speak absolutely all day. So something that I'm a big advocate for, wealth creation is such a unique art form. Everyone's doing something different with their money and everyone wants to know what everyone's doing with their money, but nobody wants to share what they're doing. So, some of these conversations would be had, and I think men are honestly better at talking about money. They'll catch up. Have the whiskey and talk about what they're doing with their portfolios, but why aren't women? So part of this podcast at the end, I like to just check in and say, what are you building? What maybe whether or not you don't have to share specific numbers, you can if you like. I certainly do. But what have you built so far? What are you hoping to build? And where's your sort of lane? Is it property, shares, a mixture of everything, super, all of it? Just whatever you can pepper in, the guests would love to hear. So
for us personally, we've got a mix of a lot of different things. So we've got property, that's served us well over, the last couple of decades. We've got, business that we're focusing on at the moment. And then a lot of it is exactly what I'm doing with my clients. I harp on about super and the tax benefits, and, we do that ourselves as well. So there's superannuation, there's shares, there's cash, there's all sorts of things, investment bonds, the investments for the kids. So yes, it is well spread in that
I love that
sense.
so much.
Yeah.
It's a tapestry.
Yes, it is.
Yes.
Exactly.
And I think it's important for women to hear that as well.
Yes.
If you're waiting for the magic formula, get some good advisors and make a mix.
A mix.
See what sticks.
Oh, well, that's the thing. You know, I think the worst thing you can do is not do anything at all and wait for one day. And, you know, it can start very, very small. You know, a lot of people are under the impression that, you know, oh, I'm just not an investor. You know, a lot of women that I see are like, oh, I'm just not an investor. And I'm like, well, wait a minute. Like, you've got super, right?
Yes.
Yeah. You've got a bit of shares, right? You know, I'll have clients who have shares that are given to them as part of like employee share plans. They're like, yeah. And I'm like, well, then you are an investor. You just haven't realized it. So let's get on top of it. Let's get a really good handle on what you're doing and what you've got. And let's just amplify it.
Amazing. Yeah. Okay, final question.
Yes.
So we're here talking about what it takes to become a self-made millionaire. So for you as a self-made millionaire, what do you think is the key, whether it's a key mindset or a trait or strategy, or what's the one thing that you think you've done that has unlocked wealth for you?
Yes. Gosh. I think it all comes down to action. So I know that I've been guilty of this before as well, where I sit and I ponder and I think, oh, wouldn't this be nice? Wouldn't that be nice? But it feels so out of reach for me and it's only available for other people. But again, the action piece, you know, you can get the ball rolling and it doesn't have to be a huge step, but it can be one step in the right direction. And if you continue with that over the long term, it's almost an inevitability that you'll get, you know, close to where you want to be, if not where you want to be. What's the saying? Reach for the moon, you'll land amongst the stars.
Yes.
Yes. So I think for me, what's helped is action. And I think in this day and age, we have a lot of people, everyone's talking about manifesting and, you know, which is great. I think that's so important, but it has to be backed by action. Otherwise, it's just not going to happen.
Which is why right from day one, even though I'm big on energetics, right from day one, I couldn't have the wealth conversation without talking about strategy as well, because mindset is a big part. But if we're not doing anything, then we're just going to be let down by the fact that nothing's changed.
Exactly.
So if you're listening right now, get out your phone, write down at least one thing. What are you doing today, like right now after this podcast, to move your wealth needle? Because that is how it happens. It's a compounding effect of that very one decision.
Yes. And I think, remember, you are so powerful. Like, you were not put on this earth by chance. That's truly what I think. Like, you're not put on earth by chance. You are here for a purpose, and the desires that you have on your heart, they're there for a reason. And so you owe it to yourself. You owe it to the people you love to execute your full potential. So don't underestimate yourself. You know, if you need help, there's plenty of education material out there, but also there are people like myself who can help you. So don't be afraid to reach out.
What a beautiful way to end. So, Zorica, thank you so much for your absolute wealth of knowledge here today. So for anyone listening that wants to reach out to you, how do they find you? Where are we finding Zorica?
Okay. You can go on the website, if you like, www.liberatawealth.com.au. You can, you know, reach out through the contact form. Contact number is on there, so please don't be afraid to, you know, give us a call. It always starts with just a conversation. So, you know, even if you're not sure, call, email, we can have a chat and we can go from there. Very happy to help.
Thank you so much for your time, Zorica. I know there's a round of applause happening for you right now. So thank you once again for tuning in to today's episode. Tune in to the next one, and remember that millionaires aren't born, they are made. So let's make your millions inevitable. We'll see you on the next episode.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, Zorica.
Yay.